Welcome to episode 31 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Who mourns for Adonais?
In this week's episode, a giant green hand takes the Enterprise captive as Kirk leads a landing party summoned by the Greek god Apollo to the planet below. With the erstwhile deity in need of worship and validation from his new subjects, the crew work to undo his grip on their ship and one of their crewmates. But can Mr. Scott keep his emotions in check long enough to help see the plan through, or will his discipline fail him at the crucial moment?
Besides, you stiff-necked thistlehead, you could have gotten yourself killed.
Evening, Ian.
Good evening, Gerry. How are you today?
Stiff-necked.
As always, me too.
Thistle-headed.
Well, not as much as you are.
That's just the wind.
Yeah.
Is that a little bit of casual racism?
Yeah, it's hate speech, I would say.
Okay. I've got a feeling there'll be more hate speech this evening.
Certainly hate-laced speech.
Yeah, you're not a fan?
It's a terrible episode. Utter garbage.
Ooh, strong words.
From beginning to end, there's no part of this episode that I enjoyed.
That's good.
Okay. What about you?
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it, but I don't think I'm quite as passionate in terms of my displeasure as you are.
Okay.
Although maybe my ire will rise as we get through the podcast.
And when we get into the details and you realise just how bad it is. I mean, from my point of view, the concept itself is, I mean, at a high level, you could do something with, maybe the gods were travellers from another planet, but it's done lazily in this case. It's executed poorly, and it's by far the worst episode to date.
See what you think, Ian. Don't hold back.
Okay.
I thought it was quite a pretentious episode.
Yeah, I didn't like anything about it. And
why was it not called Who Mourns for Apollo?
Oh, well, Apollo's alive. Why would you mourn for him?
Is he alive? I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know who's alive and who's dead here and where they're meant to be and who they are.
I mean, you'll obviously know that the title's taken from Shelley.
Yeah, of course.
From his elegy for John Keats.
It's some of my favourite Shelley work, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's pretentious as well. They're trying to...
They've obviously had this idea, which is not a terrible idea, about the gods, of the Greek gods being real and travellers in space. And then they've thought, what's the worst way we could execute this? And then they've done it.
Yeah. And also, until the last 5 minutes, I was calling it Who Mourns for Adonais.
Adonais. It's based on the physique of Apollo in this episode.
Well, I think we should just get to it then, get down to it.
Sure.
Let's crack on.
It's a fairly familiar start as they carry out a routine planetary survey.
Yeah, before they start, it's worth mentioning that there was nothing in last week's episode to suggest that Chekhov would become a recurring character. We've seen navigators and yeomen just pop in for one episode and disappear, so I'm not sure if I didn't know who Chekhov was or hadn't heard of him, I would have expected him to return.
No, you probably wouldn't. But he does, and Kyle is back in this episode as well.
Yeah, I quite liked Chekhov this week. Kyle, not so much.
No, he was terrible.
Anyway, as you say, we're on the bridge where someone called Caroline, updates Kirk on the lack of life form on Polex 4 before Scotty sidles up and suggests that she join him for coffee.
Very unprofessional.
Now, this is just the start of... Scotty isn't particularly likeable in this week's episode, is he?
His character has completely changed, and he is acting like some kind of boor.
He is very boorish,
which is again not like the character. It's not well written. It's some of the lines are so bad.
It was terribly written, as you say, so out of character. You're thinking, is this someone who's come along, had never seen the show before, and picked up the writing credit this week? Yeah,
and who has no concept of social norms.
No. Why did Scotty become a jealous, sex-mad...
Yeah, I don't know.
He's quite aggressive with it as well.
He's quite possessive. In fact, not quite possessive, he's very possessive.
Caveman-esque.
Very much so, to the extent that it's beyond ridicule.
And it's not just that, I think you mentioned there, I think it's unprofessional. He's putting a lot of things at jeopardy. And it's not as if even he's just jealous because he is in a relationship with someone... there's no relationship there at all. It's all in his mind.
McCoy says here in this opening scene that she's no interest in Scotty.
Yeah, take the hint.
It's not even that. He's not got to the stage of starting a relationship and he's acting like he owns this woman.
Yeah.
Like he's entitled to her.
Exactly. It's schoolboy jealousy. I mean, she's never going to find a Scotsman attractive. It's just, what's he thinking?
Well, there you go. More casual racism. Anyway, McCoy, not content with... McCoy's not so bad, but he's about to become worse because he says that one day she'll marry and leave the service. What's that all about?
We are expected to believe this is in... What,
23rd century.
Okay.
Women only work till they're ready to have kids.
Yeah. But no, it's not even consistent. A hooer is here, working.
Yeah, and she's older than Carolyn.
Yeah. I mean,
and more attractive than Carolyn.
Well, each to their own.
But sure, whatever, yeah.
But yeah, it's a complete... It is. I'm getting angrier here, Ian. You're right.
That's it.
It's badly written.
It's badly conceived. Badly executed. We'll carry on. Yeah, even this throwaway joke about Kirk losing an officer because she's going to have a husband.
Come on, guys, you're better than this.
There was none of this back in Balance of Terror when they were having the wedding. They were going to keep working together.
Mm-hmm. Precisely.
It was fine.
Yep.
There was no issue.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, the Enterprise enters orbit of this planet and Spock reports some boring details about what's going on.
Yeah, the condition of this Type M planet. I think he describes it as quite ordinary.
Yeah, Carolyn has previously noted it's a bit unusual for a planet of this configuration not to have intelligent life.
Sure.
So it makes it an outlier. So it's a wee bit interesting from that point of view.
And at this point, this is where the episode... Yeah, I guess it really... I mean, we've seen a lot of silly things before, but this was...
I don't remember the original effect. I imagine it was laughable.
It must have been worse than this, and this isn't great.
This is terrible.
Yeah. So what is it?
It's a giant green hand. Sulu points out, oh look, something on the screen. It looks like a hand. Spock says, no, it's not a hand. There's no tissue. It looks like a hand.
Yeah, it progresses towards them as if they're trying to grab it. The Enterprise, that is.
And does. Pinches it.
That reminds me of the Kids in the Hall sketch. You wouldn't have seen this, will you? Kids in the Hall sketch.
What's that from?
It's a Canadian comedy troupe.
Okay.
It was a show. It was big in the 90s, early 90s maybe.
Before my time then.
One of the recurring sketches was I'm squeezing your head. There was a guy who was a little bit further back than someone. And
right, on the camera perspective.
And that was his thing, yeah. It became a catchphrase, I think, for in the playground.
Yeah. We should know that they reference the giant green hand in the movie Star Trek Beyond, which is the most recent Star Trek movie.
Do they?
As a possible cause for the disappearance of a ship that they've lost track of.
Okay. Anyway, Kirk orders a change of direction to try and avoid it, but to no avail. And not only that, but they get thrown across the bridge when it grabs them and holds them tight.
That's it.
Like a woman.
No. Credits now?
We do, followed by Captain's Log 3468.1. We see the Enterprise gripped like a harmonica and get an unnecessary summary. One of these summaries that we don't need, just explains what we've already seen.
It doesn't even explain what we've just seen. It just says we've been stopped in space by an unknown force.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that. In case you missed the massive green hand.
Kirk has Uhura report the situation to Starbase 12, presumably on the basis that he'd be considered out of his mind if he tried to do it himself.
Sure.
There's a giant green hand.
You tell them.
Yeah.
Maybe better coming from the captain. No. You tell him.
If there's any questions, just answer them.
Yeah.
Sulu tries to get them out of the grip of the hand. He can't.
Yeah, by rocking the ship.
On the plus side, there's very few injuries being reported and no major damage.
Spock then reiterates that the hand is an energy field before Kirk tells Sulu to try using the forward beams to repel. So they're trying to push against it. Tractor beams, yeah.
Yeah, so the things they would normally use to catch or hold another object, they're using to repel, they're reversing. But
equal and opposite reactions and all this type of stuff.
Something like that. It doesn't really work. I think Spock said something as well about the field being on unusual wavelengths.
Sure.
This entire episode's not on my wavelength.
Clearly. Spock at this point notes some curious activity on a scanner. And so the screen is turned on and they are presented with a man who apparently is the source of their problem.
The eons have passed, and what has been written has come about. You are most welcome, my beloved children. Your places await you.
Response frequency, Lieutenant.
Calculated channel open, sir.
You have left your plains and valleys and made this bold venture. So it was in the beginning. You have made me proud. Now you can rest.
This is Captain James T. Kirk, commanding the USS Enterprise. Please identify yourself.
We shall remember together. We shall drink the sacramental wine. There shall be the music of the pipes. The long wait has ended.
Are you responsible for stopping the ship?
Yes. I caused the wind to withdraw from your sails.
Give it back, then we'll talk.
It has been 5,000 years. Have you learned no patience in that time?
I don't know who or what you are, but I must warn you, we have the power to defend ourselves. If you value your safety, release this ship.
You have the same fire, how like your fathers you are. Agamemnon, Hector, Odysseus.
Never mind the history lesson. Release the ship.
You will obey me, lest I close my hand. Thus.
A few things to pick out there, eh?
Literally every word can be picked out there.
Adonis is a dick.
He's Apollo.
And him as well.
Yeah. Apollo the Adonais, you could say.
Oh yeah, he's a well-built man.
He is.
Yeah, he's just not a likeable character either. He's full of it. Stop talking in riddles, get on with it. And Kirk shouldn't be taking this aggressive attitude either. Oh, we've got power, we can do this and do that. He should have learnt his lesson before, that there are things in the universe that can swat them aside if they feel like it, whether physically or through or their mental prowess.
If we're going to go through the motions of taking this seriously for a minute, Apollo obviously initially expects to be received rapturously by joyous humans who have rediscovered him at last, having travelled across the stars to find him. He thinks their world revolves around him, having been their god, and that they will now be delighted to have rediscovered him and willing to end their journey there and live out the rest of their lives on his paradise planet.
Full of himself.
Well, yes. But then he has reason to be with the way the humans treated him back in the day.
I don't even believe that him applying that force. So at the end of the clip there, what he does is he squeezes the Enterprise, and inside they all feel this pressure. I don't think that's how it'd work. I don't know, mind you.
Well, maybe it's not just the physical squeeze of a hand. Maybe there is some other pressure being brought to bear.
Okay.
That's not the worst thing in this episode.
No. Anyway, this forces Kirk to admit defeat and beg for him to stop.
Yes, and Apollo at this point invites Kirk to bring his officers, but not the pointy-eared one who reminds him of Pan.
Who's boring.
Yes, irritating.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, this is where we learn it's not going to be a Spock episode.
No.
Spock says he's not insulted by this comparison because there would need to be an emotional reaction to be insulted, and he does not have that capability.
Yeah, don't believe him.
Well, I don't believe he's insulted. He's probably quite happy not to. Well, he may be scientifically curious.
Yeah, I would think so. I think he'd want to be there, not left out.
But at least there's not some moron left in charge of the Enterprise like usual.
Down on the planet, Kirk is there with McCoy, Scotty, Carolyn and Chekhov. Sulu must be raging. He's the new guy and he's coming down. He's like, oh, can I not come in the mission? Nope.
You're not an officer anymore, Sulu.
You're staying up here.
Yes, Carolyn asks why she's been brought along, and
yeah, she looks a little nervous.
McCoy explains that you're the new MacGyvers. We've brought you to fall in love with the bad guy.
Yeah, well, precisely, yeah. No, he tells her, or reminds her, that she is an expert in anthropology and archaeology with knowledge of ancient civilizations and they're going to need help with this. I mean, she should know this. Like, why?
You know what your job is.
Yeah. Why do you think?
Basically, what she said, you know your job? She's like, yeah. What? Yeah, that's what you're here. Do your job.
Beside them is a Greek-style temple, and sitting in it is the man whose head we'd only previously seen.
Yes, he says he is Apollo from Greek mythology, and Chekhov says, no, you're not.
Well, he says, yeah, and I'm the Tsar of all Russia or something like that.
Kirk agrees that this is no god.
Yeah, although he's not a simple character, I think Kirk points out. He's obviously...
There's something about him.
Well, he's forced us down here after squeezing our ship.
Yes.
Yeah. I quite like this is... So I didn't really get the... Well, I suppose we got a taste of it last week. A flavour of Chekhov's character. He's quite impudent, I think. That's what I'm getting from him so far. He's a bit of cheek about him, which I like.
A bit like Pan, you might say.
No, Pan was boring.
Okay.
Check it's the opposite.
Only in the view of the gods.
Right? Now Chekhov's a
He's more puckish, maybe.
Yes. That spirit about him.
Right. Apollo has cut off their communication with the ship and asks them to worship him. And Kirk declines.
Yeah, let's not skip over the fact that he keeps up this nonsense. He's always talking in riddles and flowery language when it's not required. And then he mentions Carolyn's beauty and how him and Zeus and Artemis, etc., knew of Earth or were aware of it 5,000 years ago.
After Kirk's decision not to worship him, he becomes very big.
Yeah, it gets weirder.
Engorges himself and says, "Welcome to Olympus," as if they're meant to be impressed. He wants them to be oppressed, actually. That's probably a Freudian slip there.
Yeah, it took a turn there, didn't it? Were you expecting... Well, obviously you've seen it before, but I wasn't expecting him just to become massive.
No.
Honey, I blew up the deity.
He's obviously looking for ways to impress them. It's like, you won't worship me like this. Look at my wonderful physique. What if it were 10 times bigger? Probably shouldn't mention Freudian slips and Greek gods.
No.
You go on to Icarus and people like that, and it's a bit dodgy. Let's move away from that. Back to the bridge.
No, Icarus is... You're thinking of...
I'm thinking of the one who
What,
was
his mother?
attracted to his mother.
Yeah, it's not Icarus.
I don't care anymore.
Icarus is the one that flew to the...
Yeah, he flew
sun.
up to the sun and his wings melted and he fell in the sea. Who's the one that loved his mother?
Oedipus.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I don't know, to be honest. It's obviously something you're aware of. Back in the Enterprise, Uhura notes communications are jammed from their end and Spock asks her to fix it.
I think you see him in this episode, he is quite efficient. He's managing all the different elements of it, and I think...
Yeah, he's determined that the way to control Uhura's work is through sarcasm.
There's a bit of patronising language later on. I'm not sure if he was...
Oh, I assumed that he was just challenging her, but maybe he was actually disappointed.
No, I think he's making a specific effort to... I think he knows that he can maybe be seen to be quite clinical and forthright, and he's trying to, I suppose, act more human towards her. He thinks this is how you should. Maybe he's copying how he sees Kirk.
Or maybe. I thought as well that he maybe knew what she had to do and wanted her to come to the conclusion rather than having to tell her, or at least give her a chance to figure out.
Yeah, I didn't mind Spock in this episode at all.
Okay. He tells Sulu what to do because obviously he's not smart enough to figure it out for himself. He has to rig the transmission circuits for maximum power generation, allowing them to later reverse the polarity.
Meanwhile, back on Pollux 4, as they gawp at the huge Apollo, he vanishes, causing McCoy to utter Spock's famous line.
He does.
Fascinating.
It's a good line. We should think of using that.
Yeah. We'll work it in somewhere.
Yeah.
Kirk then asks Carolyn for her input and wants to know more about their captor.
Apollo, a twin brother of Artemis, son of the god Zeus, and Leto, a mortal. He was the god of light and purity. He was skilled in the bow and the lyre.
And this thing?
Obviously, he has some knowledge of Earth. His classical references and the appearance of all this.
I think the appearance of all this is for our benefit. Bones?
Well, I can't say much till I check out these readings. He looks human, but of course that doesn't mean a thing.
Whatever he is, sir, he seems to control a remarkable technology.
Power is what he controls. You can't do tricks like that without energy.
Fine, but what power and where is it? Scout around with your tricorders. Find the source of that power. Bones.
Yes?
Bones, I wonder if 5,000 years ago...
You have a theory?
I have an idea. What if he is really Apollo?
What?
Captain?
Carolyn's shout there is because Apollo has reappeared on his throne, offering life in paradise in exchange for loyalty, tribute, and worship.
Yeah. Kirk tries to be pragmatic and says that they'll talk, but they don't bow down to every creature who dazzles them.
That's certainly true.
Yeah, and nor should they.
Kirk makes reference to his people on the Enterprise, and Apollo corrects him.
They are now his people, and he will and can do with them what he wishes.
That's not going to endear him to Kirk.
No. Carolyn then asks the obvious. Why? What's this all about? It makes no sense.
What you about?
Yeah. But instead of answering her, and he does this several times, he just ignores him, which sometimes can be I quite like.
Yeah, he says something about her being beautiful.
Yeah, he compares her to Aphrodite and Athena.
This presses all of the new Scotty's buttons.
Yeah.
He goes absolutely berserk.
Well, yeah, but he also says that she seems wise for a woman.
Scotty's furious about this.
Yeah.
Draws his phaser. How dare you show interest in the woman that I have claimed?
This, again, is terrible. So, he's quite entitled, I suppose, to have these emotions himself, okay, jealousy, but you keep them under wrap. And if you must, you can perhaps say something or, okay, Apollo, son, that's enough. Keep down, keep it calm. But you don't attack someone because they are daring to compliment your bird, or it's not even your bird.
The bird you fancy.
Yeah.
And even if you took that out of it, if you say Scotty's just trying to protect her as a vulnerable member of the crew.
Yeah, but he's not.
Well, he's not, but even if he were, that would be also inappropriate because she's more than capable of speaking for herself.
Yeah, and being attacked with, like someone even insulting another member of the crew doesn't warrant being attacked with a phaser.
No. Fortunately, Apollo is able to deal with Scotty quite easily and brushes him aside.
Yeah, there's a few times he gets planked on his backside.
I think it's about 3 times.
Yeah, there are a couple that are quite nice. I think one with the magic finger.
Yes, they actually used a harness on one of them to haul somebody across.
Yeah, in fairness, I did think it was a decent effect.
All this outdoor stuff was filmed indoors.
Was it? Yeah. Well, they didn't fly over to Greece?
No, not on this occasion.
Okay.
Not like that time that Columbo flew to London.
Yeah. No, he really did, yeah.
With the rest of the cast not allowed to travel to London.
No.
Legally.
Hide white.
Yes.
For example, for tax purposes. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, Apollo has not only destroyed Scotty's phaser at this point, he's also mangled the rest of them. And then we get a flashback to shore leave when there's a change of outfit presented. You remember that time when McCoy and the yeoman? Yeah,
she's now wearing something more revealing, although she is delighted with it and happily takes his hand to walk off with him. This is more like bad writing or character. It's just, why would she be...
It's not only bad writing, it's a poor rip-off of Space Seed.
Yeah.
He's also fixed her hair.
Did he, yeah.
And put it up. Because all women look better. It's the same as Khan did, remember, with MacGyver's lifted their hair up.
Yeah, creepy.
Literally, beat for beat, stolen from that episode.
The jealous Scotty tries to prevent this, them walking away, but is again swatted to the ground before he warns that they will all learn discipline.
Apollo warns this, yes.
Yeah.
Carolyn says she's happy to go, and Kirk allows this.
Yeah, see, she misses the point here. It's not your choice, Carolyn. You're a member of the team. It's up to Kirk to decide if that's the strategy.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's cool, I'll go. No, not your decision here. And unless you want to resign and live with him, that's fine. But you're at work.
Yes. Anyhow, once she's away, McCoy expresses concern at that decision, and Kirk points out there wasn't really very much he was going to be able to do about it.
No. Did you also hear that Apollo state that she was very fit?
Did he?
Yeah. I think it was also meant in a different sort of context, but yeah.
Scotty wakes up and recalls that he owns Carolyn.
Yeah, he's very agitated.
And this is where we hear the anti-Scottish slur from the start of the episode.
But well, before we get there, okay, let's slow it down a little bit. Okay, so
chronologically, okay.
Yeah, so he wakes up and immediately gets agitated about Carolyn, resulting in Kirk wrongly stating that she's doing her job because, as I mentioned there, she made that decision on her own. He's assuming that she's doing her job, but we find out she wasn't.
No, she isn't. Kirk then gives Scotty more of an earful, tells him he should be doing his job.
Quite right.
And orders him explicitly not to act against Apollo again.
Yes. He says that he has to help find the source of the power. This reminded me of Squire of Gothos.
Sure. We then get the slur, the hate speech from the start of the episode, and Scotty goes off to look for this power source with Chekhov, I think. Yes.
And as he does, McCoy remarks that the engineer doesn't believe in gods, to which Kirk sharply responds that Apollo is no god. I think we've said that already.
He's mentioned it a couple of times.
Although he does suggest that perhaps 5,000 years ago, he might have been taken for one.
This is his line of thinking that he keeps hinting at.
So what is his thoughts? What's his theory?
Apollo is Apollo from Greek times, but he was never a god. They were always none of them were gods. They were just a race of advanced aliens who happened
travelers
to come by Earth and be seen as gods.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do that concept well, but they haven't here.
No. So McCoy understands what he's getting at. And Kirk goes further and states that with their great power, they could not have been mistaken for anything else. So this is why, I mean, in fairness, that would be the case if someone was able to travel back in time.
Yeah, I mean, they use that concept. I think, I'm not sure if they use it. They probably do use it in the original series. Certainly in the Next Generation, there's episodes where the Enterprise crew are seen as gods because they're so far advanced compared to the civilization that they are seen by.
And is that not what happens in Star Wars, where C-3PO is mistaken for a god by the Ewoks?
Slightly different, but yeah.
Is it?
Well,
more advanced, aren't they? So they worship him because he can speak different languages and he's all metally.
Mm. Yeah, it's kind of like that.
See, I'm a geek. Star Wars reference.
Well then.
Tying it all up.
Yeah. Anyhow, we get a...
What one is Deep Space Nine?
That's the Star Trek series that's set on the space station.
What one's Stargate?
That's nothing to do with any of it. That's the one that steals the Guardian of Forever and makes it into a whole series.
Right, okay.
Basically. It makes it out of metal and turns it into a series. We get a very brief interlude on the bridge just to break things up, where Spock earns his money by saying that we should try this, and it doesn't work. Yeah,
but Uhura comes up with a possible workaround.
For the communications, yes, she's going to rig up a subspace bypass circuit. This is where he says, do you have any ideas? And she says no, and he says, oh. And she says, oh yeah, I'll do this. And he's like, yes,
yeah.
You do that. Why didn't you think of that before?
Hear the MacGyver theme tune playing.
Yeah. Kyle has been scanning using some other plan that Spock had, but he can only find their own people and notes one of them is separated from the others. There's no reading for Apollo, but McCoy was able to scan him. Or we're about to find out that McCoy was able to scan him.
Sulu then tells him that he has identified a radiation energy.
This is it. So the problem is pinpointing it, and Spock suggests doing it on a reverse basis, rule out other areas. And Sulu's like, all the other areas? That's going to take me hours.
No, but he's right. It's like a whole planet. That's not a...
Well, it depends how big an area you can eliminate at a time.
We're now down in it's like a garden on Polex, where Carolyn is equally impressed with her surroundings as she is with Apollo's patter.
She's so impressed, she doesn't even realise he's comparing her to his previous girlfriends.
Yeah.
She refers to him as a god, and he explains that he's the only one left, even though the others didn't die, they just disintegrated a little bit.
Yeah, this is some of the gobbledygook that gets spoken in this episode, and I didn't take note of it.
Well, he talks about
the
them,
rambles.
Yeah, he explains why they consider themselves to be gods, and she's like, enough talking, we're kissing.
He says that gods need love and admiration and worship, and she asks him flatly if he really believes he is a god. And he says that in a real sense they were gods, but they had no wish to destroy, and so they came home to a place without worshippers. So let's get to the point. What's going on here?
No, it's all crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the kiss, which is obviously television substitute for sex.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the temple, or at the temple.
Yeah, we catch up with the guys who are sitting brainstorming ideas about identifying the power source.
There is a repeated occurrence of registrations, a regular pulsating pattern of radiated energy.
Unquestionably, an immensely powerful field of energy is being generated around here somewhere. But we're just having difficulty focusing on it.
Apollo has no difficulty focusing. He taps that energy, Mr. Scott.
Sir, some creatures can generate and control energy with no harm to themselves. The electric eel on Earth, the giant dry worm of Antos 4, the fluffy...
Not the whole encyclopedia, Chekhov.
The captain requires complete information.
Spock's contaminating this boy, Jim.
Are you suggesting that he, Apollo, taps a flow of energy and channels it through his body?
That would seem most likely, sir.
Mr. Chekhov, I think you've earned your pay for the week. But where is the source of that power?
Number 1 on our list of things to do.
Is that all you have to offer?
Yes, except my estimation for his physical condition. In spite of Apollo's bag of tricks, he comes up essentially normal with just a few variations. However, There's an extra organ in his chest that I can't even make a guess about.
Bones, is it possible?
Jim.
Interesting reference there to Chekhov getting paid. I think it may be metaphorical.
Yeah.
What do you think about Apollo's extra organ?
Well, they had to, I think, specifically mention that it was in his chest, or else we might have had, or I would have had, other assumptions.
You're thinking of the Klingons.
Am I?
They're the ones with the double appendage.
No doubt we'll get to that.
I'm not sure it's in this series, but certainly it's hinted at elsewhere.
Fan fiction by the sounds of it.
No, I'm not saying it's necessarily fan fiction.
Alright, okay. Anyway, they are interrupted by the appearance of Apollo, who is on his own and tells Kirk that Carolyn is no longer a concern of his.
This sends Scotty further round the bend.
Well, he ignores his earlier promise to...
It's not just a promise, it's direct order not to act against Apollo.
What did he do?
He just gets a bit mental and gets zapped.
Well, he picks up an ornament, I think.
A vase of some kind,
Yeah.
yes.
And this is the part I liked. He gets blasted across the ground.
Yeah, this upsets Kirk, who is then force choked by Apollo, like Darth Vader does in the movie.
Oh, come on. I've got my second Star Wars reference in here, Ian. Yeah, I've noted here.
This one.
Like Darth Vader.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. It's such an obvious one as well.
Yeah.
They've lifted it straight out of Star Wars.
And yeah, before he got choked, he'd mentioned that rather than having worshippers, he now has enemies. He's getting too... Like, they're being destroyed. Physically, they're being manipulated. They're being slapped about here.
Yeah.
Don't try and... You should be thinking, okay, that isn't the approach. Being aggressive with this enemy isn't going to work.
Yeah.
You've now made enemies of us. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
take more of that.
Apollo, much like myself, gets tired of this quite quickly and disappears.
So, they help up Kirk, who is recovering, and Chekhov tells him Apollo disappeared like the kid in the Russian story. And a lot of bit of banter here. I can't remember exactly what. There was a difference between the Russian and the Western version of some
Fable.
fable, yeah, some fairy tale. And it was quite nice. I liked it.
Scotty has some neural damage or neurological damage to his shoulder, which means his arm is not working.
Also, does Chekhov wear a wig? I meant to say last
I think
week.
that's his natural hair.
You think so? It looks like a wig.
He spent $70,000 a year on it.
Well, I think William Shatner's had a wig since about this time.
It's true.
Apparently.
Yeah. It's a trend that caught on.
Mm.
Goes right to the highest office in the land sometimes. Anyhow, Kirk says they should work on the theory that this guy did go to Earth 5,000 years earlier, pretended to be a god, and he then decides, I think it's one of Kirk's 3 go-to solutions to a problem.
What's that?
Or certainly his favourite of them. Assume that the enemy has a limited supply of power
Yeah.
and try and get him to use it up. It worked for him okay in Charlie X.
Yeah.
Didn't work quite so well in Balance of Terror.
At one point, I mean, you only have to get this wrong once and you're dead.
Yeah, he kind of tried it in Square of Gothos as well. And there's possibly, maybe the Corbomite maneuver, did he try it there?
Yeah. Well, he's basing this on the Greek the legends, and in that, after expending energy, they did take a period to recover and recuperate.
Yeah, but it's a little bit non-specific, isn't it?
Very. Yeah, it's very. This might be what's happening. So what we need to do is one of us needs to attack.
Yeah.
Basically, sacrifice
I've
us.
calculated that if you get killed, then the rest of us can take him.
Well, that's what it says. Yeah. They can jump him. I actually think he actually says that. Now, it's... Yeah, that's the thing. They're going to attack, and McCoy points out the obvious flaw. Like, we might die. And
only one of us.
Only one of us. Okay, who's doing the attacking here? You.
That's it. I will be needed to subdue him.
Your captain can't do it. Yeah, who else will look after you guys?
Again, a little interlude on the bridge where Uhura's got her soldering iron out.
Sorry, before we get there, this is the other, or one of the other main problems I had with this episode as well. There is no time deadline. There's no time constraint on this. So Kirk's now saying, okay, we've been here for a couple of hours. What we need to do is attack him One of us is probably going to die. We'll sacrifice one. But they're under no real. It's like, let's wait a little while. Spock's up there. He might sort it.
Nah, no chance.
You know, no, let's just go. We've had 2 hours. We're going straight to the sacrificing one person.
This is the only plan.
So you have to have put in a deadline to make that decision rational.
Kirk's thinking, this plan has worked for me 50% of the time. There's no way it can fail.
Yeah, up on the bridge. What's happening?
Uhura's got her soldering iron out and
Yeah.
she's trying to fix something. She needs half an hour.
Yeah, or else the entire system could blow. Spock's saying, come on, look, I've not done this for ages.
Spock should be reminded of Balance of Terror
Yes.
when he was doing the exact same thing.
Exactly.
But then he was a Romulan agent at that time, as we know. Sulu,
Oh, sorry, but she does seem surprised that he praises her. She says that she is the best person for the job. So that's what I'm saying. I think that when he tried to put a bit of pressure and she pushed back, saying, listen, I've not done this, give me a...
yeah.
He realised and thought, okay, how would Kirk react to this? Okay, I've got my trust in you, you're the best person. So I think it's a
bit of character development there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit obvious, but at least he's trying.
Sure. Sulu is still working on his original orders to chart the planet painstakingly to eliminate places where there is no energy source.
He's done sector 1 to 25 and he's told to continue then. So 26 to 50 now.
Yep, keep going. There's 8,000 sectors. Spock thinks that they have a way to punch some holes in this energy field shaped like a hand that is gripping the Enterprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get the pun there? Punch holes in the hand.
I just ignored it.
Once they've worked some holes, maybe between 2 of the fingers, they can shoot into the gap.
And also, Uhura might be able to broadcast through these gaps as well.
What he's trying to do is get the hand to do that Vulcan hand gesture, and he's going to ping it through the hole. Anyway, he wants the crew to work on targeted areas now and focus their efforts.
Down at the temple, Apollo and Carolyn materialise, and he immediately goes off, and he immediately goes on the offensive by claiming he knows they're trying to escape and that he knows everything about their kind.
Kirk explains that humans have come a long way in the last 5,000 years and are happy enough with just the one god. He doesn't specify which god. I'm going to assume it's
Allah.
Hanuman. Okay.
Whatever one, yeah.
Apollo is unhappy as the landing party decide to basically employ a strategy of winding him up. They turn their back on him and laugh at everything he says, including his request that they gather laurel leaves for him.
Which will become important.
At least get mentioned again.
Yeah.
He's so angry that he raises his hand to strike down or smite them, the great smiter.
However, Carolyn makes a mess of this here.
She talks him down, yeah. She calms him.
Yeah, she stands in front of Kirk and begs that he doesn't hurt them. And this softens him, and he agrees for her sake, on this occasion, that he won't kill them.
Kirk's like, Carolyn, come on! No! Lieutenant, stop it! Ah!
But he does order them to make plans to bring the rest of the crew down to the planet with tools to build homes.
He then leaves with Carolyn, and Kirk notes that they were doing fine until she ruined it. It wasn't for these pesky kids.
Yeah.
His next and only remaining idea, after 5 whole minutes of thinking about it, is going to depend on her loyalty.
Or lack thereof.
Over at the water, Apollo gives a speech about Carolyn's new status as sort of demigod, or mother of demigods.
Well, yeah, the mother of a new race of gods that will be revered by all men. To be fair, it's quite the offer, isn't it? But he's perhaps coming off a bit strong.
Yeah, I think they've just met. He's misjudged to a certain extent the state of the relationship.
Exactly. I mean, the offer of making her a go.
It's like those guys that go on their first Tinder date and say, "Oh, our kids are going to hang on a minute, son."
Back, yeah.
Literally just wanted to have a couple of drinks and
see where that took us. Yeah.
Anyway, back at the temple.
Well, we should say that, to be fair, she seems up for this, and the scene ends with a kiss.
Yeah. Kirk is there at the temple trying to contact the Enterprise futilely when Carolyn returns alone. And this is where we get the bit you were talking about. Scotty, obviously hot under the collar, starts, having to be pulled back by the shoulders and stuff. He's like, oh, let me at her, I'm going to express my emotions. Kurt stops Chekhov from going to speak to her because he's only 22.
It's a man's job.
He can't handle a full-grown woman at 22, so Kirk is going to deal with it.
Yeah, I quite like that as well. She has a vacant look in her eyes and says that she has a message for Kirk, and so he takes her to the side and listens to what she has to say.
Well?
He wants us to live in peace. He wants to provide for us. He'll give us everything we ever wanted. And he can do it, too.
All right, Lieutenant, you can come down from Mount Olympus now. You've got work to do.
I don't understand.
He thrives on love, worship, attention.
Yes?
We can't give him that worship. None of us can, especially you.
What?
Spurn him. Reject him. You must. You're special to him.
Yes. I love him.
Lieutenant, all our lives, here and on the ship, depend on you.
No, not on me.
On you, Lieutenant. Reject him and we have a chance to save ourselves. Accept him, and you condemn all of us to slavery, nothing less than slavery. We might never get help this far out. Or perhaps the thought of spending an eternity bending knee and tending sheep appeals to you.
Oh, but you don't understand. He's kind and he wants the best for us. And he's so lonely. What you ask would break his heart. Now, how can I?
Kirk tells her she has her orders and her duty. I'm not sure that tending sheep is slavery.
No.
I think there's quite a few people who work with sheep who would be offended by that.
Aberdonians.
The Welsh. They do it freelance.
They don't consider it work, that's for sure.
We then get a breakthrough up on the Enterprise as Uhura has managed to get the comms working through the use of a little bit of elbow grease and soldering irons.
So Spock takes over and tells them that they have pinpointed this power source and asks if they are near a structure.
Kirk confirms that this temple appears to be the source of the power. If only there had been some way to guess that the one structure on the entire planet had a purpose. Anyhow, Spock says, "Are you guys going to back off a bit before we shoot it?" And Kirk's like, "Nope, but hold on." Kirk then speaks to McCoy about Apollo's extra organ.
Does he?
Yes, he asks if that's his plug, basically, for the energy. And McCoy says, "I don't know," and it's never mentioned. Again, Scotty simpers something about needing Carolyn back before the attack.
Yeah.
He's really... They shouldn't have used Scotty for this.
No, they should have...
Chekhov, maybe?
No, just another throwaway red shirt character.
And they could have killed him.
Yes.
That would have been
That's
fine.
what you get.
That's what he deserves for this mistreatment of women. No wonder she wants to live with Apollo if this is the treatment she gets on board.
Been harassed.
Can you imagine
by
what
Scotty
was going to be like with her if they hadn't been taken down to the planet?
Yeah.
What if Spock or Sulu had shown interest in her? Is he going to beat them up?
Exactly.
Is he going to shoot them with his phaser?
But they've got to go back to this, to the Enterprise and work together, haven't they?
Well, hopefully he's learned a lesson from this.
She'll be putting a transfer request, but it should be him that's being transferred.
Certainly disciplined. But we've spoken before, this is why there's always a rotating group of yeomans they keep on having to move on. Anyhow,
Kirk agrees to wait for her to return before they commence with the attack.
I think that's because he wants Apollo there, though, rather than agreeing to anything that Scotty's thinking.
Back in the sort of garden area, they're kissing again, but this time she breaks away to ask about his evolutionary patterns and social developments and claims that she's never experienced a specimen like him before.
She does. She says, surely he knows. She's just studying him and she could no more love him than a new species of bacteria.
Harsh, very harsh.
He gets angry, and I think she maybe has a bit of an epiphany here because she taunts him that the Thunderbolts must be the only way he can exert his power over women.
But we should make it clear that she's doing this under some sort of duress because she has got a tear in her eye.
Yes, so she doesn't want to do this. She genuinely would have been happy to stay with him. I mean, it's only acting out of duty. Back at the temple, Kirk is talking to Spock from the Enterprise. There's an atmospheric disturbance.
Well, at the end of the previous scene, we saw him in a rage lift his arms up and thunder and wind starts to gather.
This is the atmospheric disturbance that Spock's talking about, and Kirk tells him, stand by on the phasers. He thinks Apollo's on his way. Scotty is near hysterics at this point. I don't really understand what's going on now.
Oh, yeah.
He's lost all control.
He has. He's a moron.
It's like he's been told that he's getting dumped by someone that he's desperately in love with.
Yeah.
And he's gone and crawled up in a ball and is about to, retreat from society for the next period of time.
So we're cutting back and forth to the garden area and back to the temple. We see Caroline, she's struggling to head away into the wooded area to walk through to the temple. And Apollo, he continues to harness the elements.
And he's growing giant at some point.
Yeah, he's no longer in human form, but is instead, he's in part of the sky, part of the weather system. And he is approaching the fallen Caroline now. She's lying on the ground.
Yes, and I think she's within sight of the temple, is she not?
Maybe, yeah.
I don't really know. Anyhow, Kirk orders Spock to fire on the temple as soon as he sees Apollo.
Yeah, but he's warned that Kirk's too close by.
Yeah, I think Spock did this earlier as well, but Kirk's like, no, you have to do it.
Yeah, and so the phasers are engaged as they hide behind some convenient rocks.
Polystyrene.
Yeah.
I think that'll protect them from a starship level phaser blast. Yeah, there won't be any side effects. Don't be silly.
Never.
It's very targeted.
It changes colour to red, I think.
Initially,
yellow, yeah.
Apollo is becoming distressed and says no.
Yeah, he demands that they stop, and he returns fire himself at the Enterprise.
Doesn't really do much.
Nah. So as the battle continues, a dazed Caroline stumbles in and is helped by Scotty. Now he's got a chance to
scumbag,
act like a protector.
Rat. He's the utter lowest of the low in this episode.
Yeah, she's emotionally vulnerable right now.
Here's my chance.
Yeah, I'm going to get in here. Oh, I'll protect.
She doesn't know.
Come away from him. Come on.
Up from down right now. I can get my little elbow in there.
Yeah.
Up at the Enterprise, I think we start to see this green hand disappearing or dissipating, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, the Enterprise eventually wins out and the temple disappears, which causes the now humbled Apollo to wander through the remains with tears in his eyes.
He's quite sad. And he disappears, as he explained Hela and the others doing previously, to the cosmos, returns himself to the stars.
Yeah.
Caroline greets.
She does, yeah. Now, I think at this point that the pitiful Apollo asks questions. I think he generally can't understand. He says, all I wanted was for you guys to sort of worship and cherish me, and I'd have provided I'd have been a generous Lord. But Kirk responds by saying that they outgrew him and could not give him what he wanted.
And that's the end of him. Kirk and McCoy lament, following Apollo's disintegration, having had to do this, after all the benefits that the Greek civilization brought to Earth. And Kirk says, maybe we could have picked up some laurel. What?
Well, I think he's saying that maybe we could, I don't know.
This is the usual sort of, I did what I had to do, but I feel bad about it. And we saw this before with Charlie X, and we saw it before just a couple of weeks ago in Operation Annihilate, I think. He was regretful at the conclusion, was he not?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense because there isn't, I don't think, a compromise here, another solution. You couldn't have talked Apollo around.
No.
You had to do something that was going to...
Yeah, this was it. Rubbish. Yeah. It was such a stupid episode that meant there was no weight in the ending.
Yeah, see, as I said at the start, I didn't like it, and I thought it was silly, I thought it was pretentious, and I thought it was out of character for many of the characters.
So much of it was just ripped off of Space Seed as well.
Yeah, it was lazy. However, there were nice touches. I say I quite liked Spock. I liked Chekhov. There's a couple of comments here and there, a couple of one-liners that were nice enough. I didn't like how they introduced this new female character and they made her look a bit silly. Although in the end, she did save the day.
In the alternative original ending, she is discovered to be pregnant.
Right.
She returns to the Enterprise.
Ah, okay. That's why that must have been some kiss he gave her.
Do you think we'll see her again?
Doubt it.
No.
So, yeah, oh well.
That was it.
Hope it gets better. Is this the low point, would you say?
I wouldn't put money on that.
Oh, no.
It might be the low point of season 2.
Well, okay, I can put up with that just now.
Okay. Some information.
Let's wrap it up, yeah.
Director is Mark Daniels, 6th of his 14. Discussed him in more detail back when we did The Man Trap. He directed that one.
Paul's dad.
He was actually quite fond of this one. He thought it came together quite nicely, so it shows how much he knows.
Idiot.
Gilbert Ralston was the writer, although Gene Coon significantly redid his story, which is strange because Gene Coon usually does quite well. Anyhow,
how bad must it have been if this is the
I imagine
improved version?
He took out the pregnancy. What about Scotty being an absolute
rapist,
maniac? We'll leave that in. Ralston also wrote for shows like Gentle Ben. I don't even want to know what happened in that episode. Gentle Ben gets a bit jealous. The Wild Wild West and Hawaii Five-0. But this was his only Star Trek episode. He died in 1999 at the age of 87. Michael Forrest played Apollo. This was his only Star Trek episode, unless you include that time he came back in Star Trek Continues with his wife to play Apollo again. But
who did his wife play?
Probably some other Greek.
I think it was Athena.
Okay. He also appeared in many other shows, though, including Bonanza, Lassie, and Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue.
Still alive, I believe.
Where he was the voice of Olympius. Yeah, he is 91, I believe.
Good on him. Kept himself in shape. Big lad.
Leslie Parrish played Lieutenant Palamas, Carolyn. She only made this one Star Trek appearance, but she also showed up on things like Batman, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and McCloud, and is now 85. There's no Columbo connection this week aside from the standard Walter Koenig also shows up. Obviously, we could have mentioned him, but I didn't do any notes. Kirk, Spock, standard. We've already discussed the title. Comes from a Shelley work, which was called Adonais, an elegy on the death of John Keats, which was an elegy he wrote following the death of John Keats.
Other than that, what's your favourite Shelley?
No, this is the only one that I like. This and Frankenstein.
Right, okay.
Sulu and Chekhov seen together again, making a mockery of my earlier suggestion that they're rarely in the same episode.
You tell, like at the start of this, you said you were the world's leading.
No. You said
expert on
an entire civilization of people who are more well versed in Star Trek than I am, and they're all furious at me.
Off mic, you always tell me you know more than them.
Well, that's off mic.
Okay.
John Voight was considered for the role of Apollo.
Yeah, at the time.
He's busy on another project, so obviously they didn't care that much about it. Original idea was for Apollo to have an English accent. Don't see how that would have made sense. There's apparently, and I haven't checked the veracity of this, no shots of Kirk and Apollo together in this episode, which Michael Forrest believed was William Shatner's insistence because he was so much taller than him.
What, Shatner was about 5'7" and the Apollo was about 6'4"?
Something like that.
Yeah, I can believe that.
He was made to take his shirt off before he even auditioned to see if he had the right physique for the part, and he apparently hated his costume and did silly dances in between every take, which are seen in outtake footage.
Cool.
Not very professional, but neither were the people actually in the episode. In terms of international titles, French went with Pauvre Apollon, which means poor Apollo. The Germans went with Der Tempel des Apollo. Der Tempel des Apollo, Temple of Apollo. The Japanese went for Kami Tono Tatakai, which means fight against the god.
Right.
That's it. Nothing particularly exciting this week.
No. Well, let's wrap this thing up then.
Okay, so what do you think we've got next week?
No idea.
Next week we've got The Changeling with Angelina Jolie.
The John Voight connection.
There you go.
Okay, until then.
Yeah, cheerio.
Bye-bye.